the seasoning that ruled the world. Welcome to WhoHowWorld, where we uncover the hidden origins behind the things we use, love, and even take for granted. Today's story is about something so ordinary, so familiar that we rarely stop to question it. This is the untold story of salt. Imagine a world where the most common seasoning in your kitchen was more powerful than a sword. Sounds impossible, right? But what if I told you that simple salt, not gold, not oil, once dictated the rise and fall of empires, fueled ancient armies, and decided the outcomes of wars? Yes, salt. Entire civilizations lived or died by it. Cities were built around it. Armies marched for it, and wars were fought to control it. You sprinkle it on your fries without a second thought, but for most of human history, salt was power, real power. In ancient Rome, soldiers were paid in salt. That's where the word salary comes from. Entire road networks, salt roads, were built to move it across continents. Control the salt, and you controlled food preservation, military endurance, trade routes, and survival itself. In this story, you'll discover how salt became one of the most strategic resources in human history, why armies couldn't function without it, and how this tiny crystal shaped borders, economies, and empires, all hidden in plain sight. This is the brutal, surprising, and unforgettable history of salt. Let's dive in. Before salt was a seasoning, it was survival. And without it, armies didn't march, people didn't last. Long before refrigeration, humans faced one brutal problem. Food didn't keep. Meat rotted, fish spoiled, entire harvests were lost. Salt changed that. It preserved food, stopped decay, turned fragile supplies into long-term survival. This tiny crystal could decide whether a city lived through winter or starved. Suddenly, salt wasn't just useful, it was essential. But salt did more than preserve food. It preserved people. Your body cannot function without sodium. Nerves fail, muscles weaken, fatigue sets in. Without salt, soldiers collapsed before battle even began. Armies learned this the hard way. Campaigns failed not because of enemies, but because salt supplies ran out. And here's where control entered the story. Because not everyone had access to salt. Some regions had salt mines, others had salt flats, many had nothing. Which meant dependence. Whoever controlled salt controlled trade routes, food storage, and military endurance. Salt wasn't seasoning, it was leverage. Kings understood this, generals understood this, empires were built on it, and people paid dearly for it. But survival was only the beginning, because once rulers realized salt could be controlled, it stopped being food. It became a weapon. Armies didn't just fight with swords and shields, they fought with supply lines, and salt was at the center of all of them. In ancient Rome, soldiers marched on salt. Literally. Entire road systems were built to transport it, salt roads stretching across the empire. Without those roads, legions stopped. Roman soldiers were even paid in salt allowances. That's where the word salary comes from. Salt determined how far an army could travel, how long it could fight, and whether it could survive winter. Lose the salt, and the war was already over. Enemies learned this too. So they attacked salt supplies first, cut the salt roads, poison the mines, capture the salt pans. No salt meant hunger, weakness, collapse. And then came monopolies. The most powerful kind. Empires restricted who could mine salt, who could trade it, and who could afford it. Salt wasn't scarce, access was. From China to Rome to West Africa, rulers understood the same truth. Control salt, and you control people. But controlling salt didn't just win wars, it sparked anger, rebellion, and revolutions that would shake entire nations. This is where salt stopped feeding empires and started breaking them. When rulers realized salt could control armies, they tried to control people too. And that's when things turned ugly. Because salt wasn't optional, everyone needed it. To eat, to preserve food, to survive. So taxing salt wasn't just taxation, it was pressure. In ancient China, salt monopolies funded dynasties, but they also fueled unrest. When prices rose, when access tightened, people didn't just complain, they rebelled. In medieval Europe, salt taxes crushed the poor. The same grain of salt cost the rich almost nothing, and the poor everything. Smuggling became common. Punishments became brutal, all over salt. And then came France. The gabelle. A state-imposed salt tax so hated, so unequal, that entire regions were forced to buy salt at inflated prices, even if they didn't need it. Salt smugglers were hunted, families were imprisoned, some were executed for salt. The resentment didn't fade, it fermented. And when revolution finally erupted in France, salt was one of the grievances that lit the fuse. A seasoning helped topple a monarchy. Today, salt no longer decides the fate of empires, at least not in the way it used to. Refrigeration replaced preservation, global trade replaced salt roads, modern logistics replaced guarded caravans, the battlefields disappeared. But salt never lost its importance, it just became invisible. Salt still keeps food edible, still keeps bodies functioning, still moves through massive supply chains every day. Only now, we don't notice it. In modern times, salt helped shape cities, industries, and economies. It still underpins everything from food production to chemical manufacturing. And in moments of crisis, its importance resurfaces. Supply shortages, rationing, sudden price spikes, old lessons return. The difference is this: we don't fight wars over salt because the systems built around it already won. And that's the real twist in salt's story. The most powerful weapon it ever became was the one we stopped seeing. Salt was never just a seasoning, it was survival. It fed armies, funded empires, sparked rebellions, and shaped the world in silence. What makes salt extraordinary is not how rare it was, but how essential it was. When something becomes necessary for everyone, control over it becomes power. That lesson never changed. Today, we don't fight wars over salt, but we still fight over essentials. And the most powerful forces shaping our world are often the ones we stop noticing. Salt ruled the world not because it was precious, but because life couldn't continue without it. What did you learn from this story? Share it in the comments. I genuinely love to read your thoughts. And if you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to WhoHowWorld and explore the channel for more hidden histories behind the things we use every day. See you in the next one.